Council gets so involved in sort of these state of the coast economy economic studies is not because we necessarily want to be backward looking and we want to sort of look at where we've been, but we're very hyper focused on where we're going. And what we realize is our economy is changing. It's changing in front of our eyes. When the 1990s rolled around, every market in the Southeast was working overtime to try to become a certified retirement community. You all remember hearing about that, this sort of designation of certified retirement community. And that was because the largest cohort of the population at that time was the baby boomer generation. And the baby boomer generation, they were in their peak earning years or just past their peak earning years. They were getting ready to move into retirement. They had lots of disposable income. There were questions about how they were going to choose the areas where they would retire, where they would spend a lot of that disposable income. And so they were looking for good climate and good weather and available golf and other amenities. And casino gaming, by the way, was very attractive to the folks in that baby boomer population. So we saw casino gaming coming to Mississippi at that same time. We saw golf courses being developed. We saw second homes being built. And the Mississippi Gulf Coast and really South Mississippi in general did very well. So we see that economic momentum in sort of the late 90s, and a lot of that had to do with sort of the baby boomers and the investments they were making here. But our economy's changing now, so the baby boomers are starting to leave us, and the new largest single cohort of the population are the millennials. And there are different ways that people define this. Goldman Sachs recently defined it as folks that were born between the years of like 1979 and 2000, which actually would put me into that group. I was born in 1980. But Goldman Sachs projects that these millennials in 2025, by 2025, they will be responsible for 75 cents of every dollar spent in the world, worldwide, which is amazing when you start to think about it. Well, we have not sort of been on the forefront of attracting the millennial generation. We've not been leaders in that cause. And so a lot of the reason that we do this is because we want to start to illustrate that changing economy and begin to develop solutions for being a player in that game of attracting more of those millennials, attracting more of that creative economy, attracting more of that new wealth generation that's going to come. What we've seen over time is that areas like Austin, Texas, and Nashville and Atlanta have feasted on the millennials. They feasted on the technology companies. They feasted on folks that are developing websites and apps and things of that nature because they became very attractive to those areas. But now that's starting to change. And so what we're seeing is that those millennials that move to those large metro areas, they're getting a little older, they're starting to have children, and they're saying to themselves, look, I'm stuck in gridlock, the interstate is sitting still at 8 o'clock in the morning, I can't get to work, it's becoming too expensive to live here, the cost of living is, it's just sort of out of bounds at this point. And so what they're looking for now increasingly are areas with lower cost of living, high quality of life amenities. Coastal areas are very attractive to them. So these next two slides, these are probably the most promising slides in the whole deck because they show where some of our competitive advantages are. And you look here in terms of that cost of living index, Gulfport, Biloxi, Pascagoula, MSA, we are first on the list in terms of having the lowest cost of living of all the places that we compare to. And that is very good for us because it means that as that change continues to happen, and a lot of the millennials, a lot of the companies, the industries, the economic activity that move with them to these large metro areas are now starting to look at areas with that lower cost of living. And Regan, you'll appreciate this next one. You look there at our median home price as compared to those others. Our median home price at $103,633 is extremely competitive across that board. So the message that we have as we go forward into the next 20 years really is the Mississippi Gulf Coast can offer that high quality of life, good schools, good diverse jobs, opportunity. We can also offer it at the lowest price that you can find across any of these areas. We're the best value. And that value proposition is strong, and it's something that we ought to be spending a whole lot of time in terms of our marketing efforts and in terms of our recruitment efforts for this particular population. And I'll just begin by sort of summarizing what I think we've seen throughout this presentation. Like the state, we've lacked that same economic momentum since the recession. Relative to other regional MSAs, we're small, we have a relatively low labor force participation rate, and our population population generally is, the concentration of population 65 or older is higher than what we see in some of those other places. We have a pretty high dependency on government for earnings and transfer payments. Transfer payments essentially means government checks, people that are on social assistance, other forms of government checks. While the high school attainment is relatively strong on the coast, our college level attainment is low compared to these other areas. So that's an area we have to improve. High growth MSAs across the country are large. They have diverse, highly skilled labor force bases. And that's a worthy ongoing goal for the coast to look more like them, to continue to increase our occupational diversity. And then population growth has been relatively strong on the coast, but in some regions within MSA are experiencing stronger growth than others. So those really are the takeaways that I'll leave you with. But before I end, before I take questions, let me just go back to that point that I was making earlier. Our economy is changing. I was giving a similar presentation, a little longer, but a similar presentation the other day to the Leadership Hancock class. And I sort of ended by making the case for why we can't quit on the creative economy. All of you guys know we've been very focused on the coast for the last 20 years on workforce training aimed at technical type programs, and we've had a lot of jobs that sort of matched with that, and rightly so. I mean, that's not a criticism of anybody or anything. I mean, our jobs have sort of matched with that, and so in many cases the jobs that have been available on the coast weren't necessarily jobs that required that 4-year degree or even advanced degree beyond that. And so we've been very focused on that, and we've actually done a very good job at it. I think that the workforce development that's happening at Bisbee Gulf Coast Community College and at the University of Southern Mississippi and Pearl River, some of the finest in the state of Mississippi. But in order to capture the evolving economy, in order to capture the economy we're going to be shooting for 20 years from now, we can't continue to run a 1990s playbook. And so that's going to mean that we have to do everything we can to support and keep those jobs that may require a technical program in high school or even a technical degree at a 2-year college. And then we're going to have to diversify those with jobs that require a bachelor's degree or a higher degree so that we can continue to have those jobs at the high end of the payment spectrum. And we're going to have to attract more of those people in. And that's especially important for Hancock County, because the biggest issue that we have in Hancock County and in Jackson County isn't that we don't have robust economic development programs or we don't have very good industries. In fact, we do. When you compare Hancock and Jackson County to Harrison County, you'll find that generally speaking, that the jobs in our industries are higher paying, they're better jobs, they're more stable, they're more sustainable than what we see in Harrison County, where you see a lot of the lower end jobs being created. But the problem is, a lot of the people that have those jobs, they just don't live here. So they take their paychecks and they go across county lines in Mobile or Baldwin County or St. Tammany Parish, or Pearl River County, and that's where they pay their taxes, and that's where they put their kids in school, and that's where they spend their money in the grocery stores and restaurants. So as we continue to work on attracting these higher level jobs, what we have to do is we have to get more people to live here. But the good news is, in this sort of evolving economy, this younger population, these millennials, they don't want to commute an hour to work. They don't want to live 30 miles from where they work. They don't want to put their kids in school somewhere far away from sort of where their data center is. In many cases, they want the ability to walk to work if they possibly can. They want to live in neighborhoods that are more traditional. Downtown Bay St. Louis is a perfect example of the kind of things that's attractive to them. So we have a number of things that we can build on, a number of competitive advantages that we can build on to have an even stronger presence in this new evolving economy, even than we necessarily had the old one. But it really starts with all of us. It's incumbent upon all of us to do the things necessary to make sure that we're on the leading edge of attracting and recruiting this evolving economy, and not just sort of continuing to rest on our laurels and run a playbook that may now be 10 or 15 years old in terms of an economy that maybe won't be what we see in the future. So that being said, I appreciate all of your time and attention. I'll be glad to take some questions if we have another.
Yeah, we have time for